All right, we have an amazing surprise for you, something that's fantastic for us as well. The one and only Army-Ose Frimpong, live in the flesh here in studio. He is over at Funky Academic on YouTube. If you guys haven't already subbed there, I don't know what you're doing with your lives. Go and do that immediately. Army, great to see you.
Good to see you in person.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I don't want people to squander their lives. So yes, you should go over to Funky Academic.
Yeah, go Funky
That's very
Academic. Actually, like, I mean, your mind will be blown. You won't agree with everything, or maybe you will, I don't know. But you will definitely learn a lot, and your mind will be blown.
I remember the first time Iremy came on, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I watched one of these videos, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, there's some interesting stuff here.
Where did you get? I was like, a random guy on Twitter. That's what he had to say. So
now you're here. We said in our announcement video, one of the reasons we wanted to go independent was so we could talk to you, people like you without any worry about what was going to happen, and so we could talk to you for an extended period of time. And we promised our premium listeners that they're going to get exclusive long-form interviews. And we thought, after Joe Rogan, who better to pick than the Funky Academic himself. So, as I'm famous for at this point, whenever I'm interviewing you, you have 30 minutes. You're here to talk about infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Tell us what to learn.
First of all, the Joe Rogan interview is fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, he is not the person that people portray him to be. He's actually, I think he's a proto-left. Like, I think he understands that unity is important for a nation.
Yes, absolutely.
He thinks it happens naturally and tribally. I think nothing in America happens naturally and tribally, and you need to manufacture it, and a whole lot of self-governance is figuring out how to manufacture unity from opposing forces that aren't opposing in the right way. You got to get them opposing in the right way. For example, workers and bosses need to be opposing in the right way, in the same way that, you know, the Atlanta Hawks and the Chicago Bulls need to be opposing in the right way.
Yeah.
So like but I think he's a good guy. He's a good guy who actually cares about how to secure community and the institutions for security. I mean, for community. So thank you for exposing him to me.
You're very welcome.
And and I'm a better person for listening to that interview.
Well, tell us then about, you wanted to come here to talk a little about what infrastructure is.
Right.
And what do you mean by that? Because to explain to everybody and to everybody who's listening, infrastructure is a meme, right? People are like, oh, childcare is infrastructure. Or like, something like bridges are only infrastructure. So you, I mean, you obviously have a different view on all this, and you want to explain a little bit to people about why some other things they may not consider are infrastructure. What do you mean by that?
So there's a standing confusion in American discourse, and it kind of expresses itself like a, I don't know, boil or something like that. Every time we have to have like a hard conversation about what should we do with our public money, right? So the first time in recent memory was with essential workers, right?
Yes.
It's the same question. It's the same fundamental problem. We don't know what essential workers are. We don't know the purpose of government.
Right.
So we don't know what's essential and what's not. And so it ends up being just like a hodgepodge of things people happen to like. And those people are considered essential. And we're seeing the same thing in the infrastructure negotiations, right? So the danger is that they become a hodgepodge or a grab bag of things people happen to like. And it becomes a power struggle because there's no kind of systematic unity into what understanding like what infrastructure is and what we need for self-government. So it becomes things people happen to like, and the most powerful people in the room get to define infrastructure, and then we're okay with that. Because politics is all about power anyway.
Correct.
Right? So that's the story we tell ourselves. But politics isn't about power. It's about actually securing the conditions for self-government in the United States. So if I were in Abu Dhabi, right, in the UAE, and I would ask them what infrastructure is, they would probably say like airport, water,
gas.
Yeah. And if I go to Congress and ask them what infrastructure is, they would probably say airports, roads, gas. So that should already like cue a bell in your head that says like, maybe we don't actually know what we're talking about if the character of our nation, infrastructure, what we need, and the character of like, you know, kind of an oligarchy that's run by 5 families that kind of rotate.
Not kind of, a literal oligarchy.
They literally, they rotate. Like what we need and what they need isn't going to be the same thing, right? So you need to understand what infrastructure is relative to the character of your institution to understand what kind of infrastructure needs you need. So if you reduce it to these kind of existential goods, or like actually commerce goods, is what we're talking about with like Abu Dhabi or Singapore. They'll Infrastructure will be the same thing. It'll be water, roads. If we reduce it to these kinds of commerce goods, then we're actually missing the point of the United States, which is supposed to be self-government, and like actually securing freedom. So
when you say commerce goods, you mean things that are required for businesses like Amazon to engage in commerce. That's what you mean.
Yes.
So like they want the bridges, they want the roads, they want these basic essentials that allow them to run their business.
Right. Right. So, for example, infrastructure with respect to roads is going to be, you can't expect Ford and you can't expect GM to build roads, but we want to live in a nation with Ford and GM, and we want people to be able to like found businesses like Ford and GM. So we provide as a universal goods for particular businesses. All right. So self-determination, which is something that people should know about, is about particularizing yourself within a universal. Right? If you haven't particularized yourself within a universal, nobody knows what you're doing, right? So this show, Breaking Points, is a particular kind of media, right? I know what it is because I also know what CNN is, and I also know what the Young Turks is, and I also know. But you don't do it like they do it. You do it like you do it. You do it with your stamp on it. That's why it's yours. It's not completely alien to the media landscape, or I wouldn't even be able to recognize it as what it is. But what it is I say, this is more relevant, this is more important, and this is why you should all become premium members.
Thank you.
Thank you for making that.
Of Breaking Points, because they can provide a service in a way that only they're doing. They can do, right? So you have particularized yourself with this show. You have realized self-determination with this show. It also depends on the same universal infrastructure as all of the other particularizations, right? So, everybody uses YouTube and what is it, Soundcast?
Simplecast.
Supercast, which
Supercast is that's how you can sign up, but Simplecast is what we use to publish our podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending on who you talk to, it could be another piece of infrastructure. Yeah. Right, so it allows you to enable yourself in your way relative to other people who have particularized themselves in that way. So the problem is you cannot spend your resources that you have drawn to put together this show in order to have like servers and do that kind of work that YouTube does. Yeah. It would put you at a competitive disadvantage relative to
dramatic, just so people know.
Yeah, if you spent all of your money on servers and all of that, like that kind of stuff, as opposed to like allowing YouTube to do it, then you wouldn't be able to compete. Right. So that's the infrastructure that allows you to particularize yourself. That's the universal. It also allows your competition to particularize itself. But the idea is that like you do it better, so you can share. Everyone can be on the roads. Amazon will do it better.
Makes sense.
Right. So that's what infrastructure is going to be. It's the goods and services that you produce as a matter of your freedom, and then there are goods and services that need to be produced in order for you to produce the goods and services that are a matter of your freedom. Right. So infrastructure is going to be in this.
In the latter category.
In the latter category. Right. So you have Ford, you have GM, but they can't produce roads because one, they don't have the resources. Two, if one of them decides I need to build a road, the other one is going to use that as a sign of weakness and cannibalize that kind of outlay of resources that Ford used to build the roads to build a better car, and GM will win.
Makes sense.
Right? So like, infrastructure is the universal good that allows everyone to particularize themselves, even when and especially when the particular realization of freedom is not organized to thrive and produce that universal, right? So the question is, what kind of universal are we? What kind of particularization do we need as a nation, right? I need to be able to particularize myself as a citizen. I need to be able to particularize myself as a civilian, like this in civil society. And I need to be able to particularize myself as a family member, right? Like I need, like that's what it is to be free. There are some other structures of freedom too, but those are going to be different ways. And in different ways, I need to be able to actually like do it on my terms in some way, right? So I need the conditions that allow me to do these different spheres of activity on my terms. Right?
Got it. Yeah.
I need this. All right. So in the UAE, they're not worried about any of that. They're just worried about GDP.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So
and not GDP per capita. GDP
overall.
Yeah.
Right. Which has been the mantra here as well.
Which is a problem because that's just a failure of actually thinking about what freedom actually requires. And also, we don't take self-government seriously. We don't actually care about it. How many people actually care about governing versus how many people want other people to govern?
Yeah.
I want other people to set the rules. I just want to participate. These are two different muscles.
So let me ask you though, give me some specifics of the type of infrastructure that would help secure that type of freedom that isn't typically contemplated by the Amazons of the world or their, bought and paid for politicians who are doing their bidding.
Well, depending on I have art. I brought art.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so
Let's see it.
Let's see this art that I have. So the first thing we're going to look at is this article from 1918 in Greenville, South Carolina, where it says Negro women to be put to work, right? So the idea was that their husbands were fighting in World War I, drawing a pension, and so the wives didn't want to clean houses anymore while their husbands were drawing a pension. They would watch white people's kids. They would actually want to go home and watch their own kids.
Okay.
And so, and one would think that would be their right? To not work for white families and instead go home and watch their own kids and clean their own houses. But that was a kind of affront to the freedom, to the self-determination of the white families in Greenville. Right? Like part of what it was to be their kind of family, the way that they decided, meant someone else watched the brats.
Sure.
And then, and did the dishes because I decided as a part of my family that that's not really making me a better parent or a family person. I need someone else to do it. Just like being a better, just like taking my trash to the dump every week doesn't exactly make me a better homeowner or property owner. It's better when someone else does it.
Sure.
So as a matter of infrastructure, they needed someone else to clean their house and watch their kids. And the thing is, there's a way in which you're not wrong. The problem in a democracy is that you have these goods and services that are produced by freedom, and then there's these goods and services that are produced for freedom, and the goods and services that are produced for freedom we call infrastructure. But they're produced and they're by people who themselves need to be serviced by other people.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So the idea is that maybe instead of just saying maybe we should just subsidize house cleaners. Is the argument I would draw from this. Because maybe the white housewives weren't wrong. And maybe it actually is oppressive. And to the family freedom.
Well, you see a lot of this right now. So one of the things I was tracking before the pandemic is that the largest growth sectors in the economy for employment were things like nail technicians, personal trainers, Uber Eats drivers, So I was like, wait a second, this is all just enabling the bullshit upper middle class lifestyle, right? That's basically
It might not be BS.
No. That's why I want to hear from you, because you're talking about making it so that we should subsidize that maybe as a society.
That more people have access to the bullshit upper middle class.
But in a way,
hey, look, I had a house cleaner for a little bit, and you know what I did? Read better books.
Okay.
It didn't make me a worse parent.
No, you're not wrong. Listen, we're all busy people. Obviously, I'm guilty as sin as using Uber Eats, okay? I've got platinum whenever it comes to Uber
Was that
Platinum.
worthless?
No, it wasn't worthless at all because I spent that time to build this business, okay? So listen, I'm not saying that I didn't provide, but that being said, I don't think somebody's employment should be up to the whims of whether I'm busy enough to cook or not.
Well, and the only infrastructure that gets provided for is that supports, us to have
that's
Uber
right.
Eats.
That's right.
And
Those people don't have delivery.
In my world, house cleaners themselves have house cleaners, right?
Okay.
So you have to understand, and they get paid well and subsidized. Angela Davis has a fantastic piece on this. Chapter 13 of her book, Women, Race, and Class.
Okay.
And it's just about the obsolescence of housework. It doesn't actually make people better or freer. It's just after about 4 kids, I have 3 kids. I think after about 4 kids, you can always be doing laundry.
Oh, yeah.
my
And it doesn't make you a better parent.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, you have about
I have 3.
Yeah, so you can always, in a world, you could always be cleaning things and doing laundry. And that's not gonna make you a better mom. So, and it's not gonna make you a more creative and interested and more meaningful family member.
Okay.
The idea that this is infrastructure that secures a particular kind of freedom actually makes sense, because not all freedom is gonna be commercial freedom. There's a freedom of the family where I get to decide how I'm gonna organize my household.
Yeah.
But without, the maids, it wasn't the people deciding how they're gonna organize their household. It was the fact of mess deciding, that over-determines how they spent their day and how they spent their time raising their children, right? So the idea is that the infrastructure of these housekeepers allowed for a certain kind of freedom. And we saw this again in another clip I'm going to show you. This is 20 seconds long, so it's very short.
No problem. What's the clip? Want me to Google it?
I can't actually.
What is it?
You can't. I drew it from a city council.
Just describe it to us then.
All right, so in this clip, you're going to find one of my Athens city council members. It's publicly, it's off
publicly
the internet.
available.
Yeah, publicly available. Talk about the shutdown of Athens for the pandemic. And he was very concerned because he had people come to him talking about the shutdown of the pandemic.